Welcome back to our channel, where majestic journeys in the vast ocean are recreated. Where silent people face the sea day and night, fight storms and pursue the rarest and most valuable creatures on the planet. In today's video, we invite you to follow the journey of catching hundreds of giant king crabs, one of the rarest and most valuable seafood in the world, on modern fishing boats crossing the Alaskan Sea, where the waves are as high as water walls and steel traps weighing hundreds of pounds are dropped to the cold deep sea. Dawn has just broken. A thin mist still lingers on the cold sea surface. Seabirds chirp loudly as if welcoming the new day. The king crab fishing boat starts to start. The roar of the engine blends with the sound of the waves. On the deck, fishermen wearing thick protective clothing, rubber gloves and cold-proof hats start their work with focused eyes. There was no time for hesitation. Every second that passed in the open sea was a gasp of breath against the cold wind and the heavy task ahead. The giant iron trap cages, called pots, had been prepared in advance. Each cage was nearly 2 meters long, weighing up to 300 kilograms, filled with fish bait to attract king crabs, giant crabs that live on the deep sea floor. Hydraulic winches were activated, pulling each cage from the hold to the side of the ship. Giant steel cranes gently lowered the cages to the edge of the ship. With a push, the cages fell into the sea with a powerful boom. The sea surface shot up white waves like fire in the middle of the sea. Over the next few hours, the ship moved along a route carefully calculated from GPS, continuously dropping hundreds of cages to potential locations on the seafloor. King crabs usually live at a depth of more than 200 meters. In cold water with a temperature below 4 degrees Celsius. The colder, the deeper, the more opportunities to harvest the biggest, strongest, most valuable crabs. Some experienced fishermen often say to each other, wherever it is coldest, there is red gold at the bottom of the sea. A few hours later, when the first cages were lowered and started to be pulled up, the entire crew entered the most tense phase. The winch was restarted, the screeching of the steel wire, the rumbling of the engine. The collective shouts of the whole team echoed through the air. A cage gradually rose above the water, streams of cold water flowed out on both sides, and then the whole group shouted in unison, "There are crabs! There are crabs!" The crab legs were as big as an adult's arm, reddish-brown in color under the dim light of the sky, constantly moving in the cage. The king crabs, each weighing 8 to 10 kilograms, with a leg span of up to 1.8 meters, are now thrashing about after hours of being trapped. The atmosphere on board is electric. Every time the cage is pulled up, there is a sense of suspense. Are there any crabs? How many are there? Are they the right size? The men on board move flexibly like an experienced army. They open the cage doors, use specialized clamps to quickly put each crab into the container, and sort them by size and weight. The underage crabs are released back into the sea. Because the king crab fishing industry here strictly adheres to regulations on protecting marine resources. Female crabs carrying eggs are also immediately returned to the ocean. The air is cold and humid. The wind blows fiercely. Sometimes giant waves crash against the side of the ship, sending them up like walls of water. But the fishermen do not stop. Sweat mixed with seawater, black rubber gloves stained with ink and mud from the seabed. But none of them complained. For them, each crab they caught was a reward, the result of many days at sea, a pride they held dear for life. The scene of machinery operating on the ship was like something out of a science fiction movie. An automatic sorting system fed crabs onto conveyor belts. Cameras scanned to determine size. A robotic arm gently pushed crabs into the appropriate trays. Commercial-grade crabs were loaded into deep freeze tanks, where the temperature was kept constant to keep the crabs alive until they reached shore. Each tank could hold up to 1,000 live crabs. Continuously aerated, engineers on board monitored the temperature, pressure and oxygen levels minute by minute, because one mistake could mean the loss of hundreds of tons of crabs. Sometimes, a storm suddenly comes, dark clouds roll in, the wind howls, and waves over 5 meters high crash against the hull. But no matter what, the men on deck continue their work. They tie the anchor rope, keep the cages balanced when they are about to fall, and shout loudly to coordinate people. The scene is no different from a battlefield at sea. Cages weighing hundreds of kilograms are pulled up in the middle of big waves. Water floods the deck, making everything slippery, but the concentration never leaves the eyes of each sailor. Just 1 second of inattention, a wave can sweep away a life. The captain shares while observing everything from the control cabin. And then, after hours of struggling with the weather and the deep sea, the ship begins to fill with king crabs, crabs as big as trays. With long, bristling legs, sharp and heavy claws, the entire air conditioning system, preservation machines, and processing equipment are operating at full capacity. The crew breathed a sigh of relief. The fishing trip was a success. Another day at sea had passed. Leaving in each person's heart a mark of cold wind, of fierce waves. But most of all, the joy of natural victory. The ship gradually turned around, leaving the fishing area, heading towards the port. The sun was high, shining a soft yellow light on the cold gray sky. The birds flew after the ship, signaling the beginning of a new day on land. The sailors sat on the deck, drinking hot coffee, looking at the bright red crabs in the hold, the precious assets they had just won from the sea. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a day of king crab fishing, a series of harsh yet beautiful moments, where people fought with their wits, strength and even their hearts against the deep sea. Hundreds of pounds of iron cages dropped into the icy ocean, giant waves crashing against ships, hardened arms lifting giant crabs out of the water. All are an indispensable part of the world's multi-billion-dollar annual crab fishing industry. Thank you for joining us on this special journey. If you find the video interesting, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next great trips. Goodbye and see you again.